Okay, thanks everyone for joining. This is Jonathan Berry from Accelatis. Joining me today I have Tony Mitri, and we're going to be talking about tips and tricks for HFM rules. And just a little bit of background first. So with the 21-minute format, we generally don't have time for questions, but if you do post any questions, we will respond to you directly. And our very last slide has some more contact information, so you can either post them in the webinar or email them to us directly. And for the record, this is a very technical topic, so we will get into details, and the webinar will be made available on our YouTube channel sometime after the webinar today. So we're going to do a little bit of background on Accelatis, and then we'll get right into the tips surrounding HFM rules. And again, I will be handing off to Tony to go into detail on those topics. And a little bit of background about Accelatis for those who don't know. Again, this is Jonathan Berry, founder of Accelatis, a longtime Hyperion person, one of the original creators of the HFM product, actually, along with Tony Mitri, going back to the late 90s. I went on to lead the engineering team of both HFM and FDM, and then spun off this company in 2008. Our development team comprised mostly of former Hyperion technologists and developers. And also on the webinar today is Ed DeLisi, partner at Accelatis, who ran North American sales for Upstream and joined Accelatis earlier this year. So the last slide on Accelatis is just to know that Accelatis is a software company, not a consulting company. So we work with our partners to help implement and leverage our solution at our clients. And although today we're talking specifically about HFM and a very specific part about HFM, Accelatis Ascension Suite does support the whole Oracle EPM suite of products, including S-Base and planning and reports and FDM and others. Okay, so here to talk to you more is Tony Mitri. As I said, he was one of the original creators of HFM and is largely responsible for the internal workings of the HFM consolidation engine that you use today. So he will go and take us through a little bit of the background and the specific tips on HFM rules.
Hi, this is Tony Mitri, actually, and today we're going to review some key tips about HFM rules that we still see clients have issues with today. We have used the sample application for the data presented in this webinar. Again, your result will vary based on many factors, but the message is the same. Lastly, we have used the HFM Rules Profiler to quantify our result. This tool is used by our clients to automatically instrument, profile, and analyze HFM consolidation performance to identify bottlenecks and ultimately improve performance. OpenDataUnit. Again, OpenDataUnit is a very powerful function in HFM. It was kind of brought in or developed, like I think mostly starting with version 2 or 3. Before OpenDataUnit, clients used to use the for loop in the script to enumerate through data sets. So they had to use for each account, for each member in the account dimension, for each member in the custom dimension, retrieve a get cell. And basically that was somewhat inefficient. So we have the OpenDataUnit that will retrieve data basically for all intersections that have data. Again, here we have using the HFM Rules Profiler, we have profiled the for loop against the OpenDataUnit, and then we compare the results. So here we said give me the account list, and for each member in the account list, do some calculations. Doing that, it took us, and we ran basically a simple consolidation. Again, this consolidation was on the US hierarchy that has the 50 states, and it took roughly about 33 seconds. Now, the stuff that you see here, the stuff in red, is something that it should not be done, and stuff that going through a lot of clients' applications and looking at rules, I still see today. So anything you see where there's a for loop, if possible, should be replaced by an OpenDataUnit. Again, here we have used the OpenDataUnit, and doing the same type of consolidation, it took about 20 seconds. So that was somewhat 20–30% improvement. Another tip is subcalculate. Again, subcalculate gets called roughly on almost at every member of the value dimension. and it should be used very wisely. So whenever you do consolidation, it should be limited to whatever you want to accomplish based on the value dimension. So if you want to do something on the entity currency, it should be done on entity and value dimension compared to entity currency. Again, here is, we're doing some calculations on the base entity. So we said if this entity is a base, do some work. But in essence, you don't want to do that for every member in the value dimension for a base entity or for a base entity. So you wanted to do it for if the entity, for example, as you can see in the next slide, if we have a base member and the entity dimension and the value member is entity currency, you want to do some calculation. In this case, I'll go back to the previous slide. Doing the consolidation in this case took about 21 seconds. And if you look down here on the do work function, it was called roughly about 27 times. Doing the same thing by limiting the subcalculator to only one calculation on base entity and where value member is equal entity currency, we improved consolidation by roughly by about 1 second, and the do work here was called only 9 times. So again, on a much bigger consolidation, this will give you better performance. HS.EXP. Now, HS.EXP was a very powerful function in enterprise, and because of its popularity and because it was so powerful as expression calculation, it was put into HFM. Now, again, HS.EXP is used to copy data from one section of the subcube to the other. But not only from within the subcube, HS.EXP can get data from another subcube or anywhere in the application to the subcube that is being currently calculated. So in a way, using it wisely is very important. Here, in this case, we're copying data from all custom members from one account to the other. In a way, this is kind of, if this is absolutely necessary, that's fine. But in some cases, or most cases, you should specify what data you're copying. So you should specify the custom dimensions if possible. And somebody might say, yeah, okay, this is fine. I can specify the custom dimensions, but in this case, I'm not overcopying data because of my no input rules and because I have my top level members set up in my hierarchy, which is great. Fine, you're not overcopying data, but essentially internally HFM, to kind of figure all that stuff out, it needs to kind of do a lot of work to say where data exists, what is no data, where, invalid combination, all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of processing going on besides, even though it's not copying extra data. So by specifying the custom member, you're kind of giving a hint to HFM that says, okay, this is exactly what I'm copying. I know what I'm doing. Just do the copy very quickly, and that will kind of improve performance. So again, going back, running the same consolidation, I've cleared the account dimension, and I'm copying all custom members from one account to the next. Took about 22 seconds. Doing the same thing by specifying the custom one dimension, only one member of the custom one dimension, took about 20 seconds. So again, here, on a much bigger consolidation and where data is more dense, you're going to see a bigger improvement. And one key issue with EXP is not only it copies data from one section of the subcube to the other, it also goes to a database. So this is a very write-intensive function. Now, one caveat of the HS.EXP, if not used wisely, could result in data explosion. In this case, if you look at the line in red where it says HS.EXP, see custom for movement, so I'm copying data from account sales, and I'm doing some calculations. So I'm saying custom one movement plus increases minus decreases and putting them into custom one movement. Now, if you notice that the account sales was not specified on the left-hand side of the equation. In this case, which I think it should be an enhancement to HFM, in this case, HFM is taking that value, calculating that value, and copying it to every single member of the account dimension, which could result in data explosion. I believe this should have been a syntax error, and the only way that you should be able to specify, if that's what you really wanted to do, the expression should be HS.EXP open quote £all, meaning that I want to put in, take a sales account and I'll put it in all my accounts members. This way you're kind of being explicit instead of implicit. Here again, another issue that we have seen actually recently at one of our client applications is that they have a lot of code in the global section, meaning that they have code not inside subroutines, but outside of the subroutines, meaning that they're global. So every time HFM try to open application in HFM, this section of code has to be executed. So basically what they were doing, they were building a lot of member lists that later will be used in their calculation. In a way, this is fine if that's absolutely necessary, but you should not do that. Basically because it will make the application time open, it will take longer, and every time you have to load rules, there'll be a lot more to kind of parse rules, because HFM will have to kind of parse, not only parse rules, but to run all these logic on the fly every time you open an application. And because HFM can create up to 64 VBScript rules engines, it will run the same exact code 64 times. Also, one major caveat is that if there is an error in one of those in this logic, the application is going to somewhat open very quickly, and that error is not going to be found until you run consolidation. So you're going to get an error while consolidating, and somebody's going to go in there and start looking at the sub-consolidated routine, and most likely they're not going to find anything because there is no error in a sub-consolidated routine, where essentially the error is in the global section, which might take some time to kind of figure out. Another key thing to watch out is that when I'm thinking of global section or global code, doesn't necessarily mean stuff that are on top or in the beginning of the file. This code could be anywhere in the file that is not inside of a function or a sub. So you can see here the stuff that are in red, not necessarily that are on the top, but they are, for example, one of them is after the sub no input. So anything should be in HFM essentially, unless absolutely necessary, it should be inside of a function. And again, this client kind of took that code and removed it all and was able to kind of put it inside the member list subroutine, because they're building kind of a list of accounts and customs, or in where absolutely necessary, it was taken out and put it inside, for example, subcalculate or subtranslate or subconsolidate, where it's kind of needed there. Again, this is timing of before and after that change was done, and the app load time kind of went from roughly 4 minutes or so to about 10 seconds, which is a big improvement. And again, the rules the rules load went from 4 minutes and 30 seconds or so to about 10 seconds. And in this case, the rules load was longer because HFM had to not only just open the application or read on our rules, they had to physically load the rules and then reopen and then reload metadata and open the rules.
Thanks, Tony. So I think we just set a new record for the shortest webinar of all time. Hopefully everyone found this information useful. You know, we try to keep it to some very key things that we've seen, again, as Tony said, that we've known for a long time. They're part of best practices, I think, but we still wind up seeing them in the field. So we felt that it would be important to kind of convey those. We're very interested in hearing people's results. So this is something we'll be posting this. If you need the slide deck or more information, please send a note to Ed DeLisi's contact information is right here. It's also on our site. We will be posting this video up to our YouTube channel in the not-too-distant future, but if you need something more immediately, please let us know. And we are interested in your results, so if you see something here that you identify in your own rules and you're able to make changes, definitely get back to us, let us know what differences you see, and that'll just add to kind of our anecdotes about where we see these types of things in the field. So a couple other notes, just upcoming webinars. Along the lines of HFM rules, tips and tricks, we're going to be putting together a webinar on the inner workings of consolidation and really focusing on kind of demystifying the process, because even in recent history we've spoken to many clients who had some kind of understanding of how they thought consolidation worked, and they were kind of going down a wild goose chase on where they thought there was a problem, only for us to review it and realize that the process is working as expected, good or bad. It was working as expected, and that their focus really should have been on something else. So we're going to get into some details there and really explain how it works and help you really get insight into the consolidation process. And then we'll also be doing a webinar on log archiving and purging best practices. So again, hopefully you found this useful. Thank you for joining. And again, let us know if you'd like any more information or getting this PowerPoint deck. Thank you.